I think this premonition that exercise for everyone is either enjoyable or not during, but then everyone feels good directly after. I think that is obviously true, and BDNF and dopamine, endorphin, serotonin, all these wonderful hormones do get released when we exercise. I think there can be a bit of a delay. I think in my experiences when I exercise, I used to play footy all the time, but now I stopped, and I go to the gym every now and then, and that's pretty much the extent of what I do now. But I hate it. I really don't like
gym,
it.
yeah.
Really dislike it. Really find it difficult, challenging.
Yeah.
When I'm tired, it's probably the last thing I want to do.
Yeah.
Drag myself there because I know the importance of it. Even directly after, I might not get that rush of
Sure.
feel
Yeah.
like, yeah, that was worth it. It will be, for me, an hour later, an hour and a half later, when I'm trying to sleep and I'm more tired. That's when I feel the benefit.
Sure.
So it does happen for me. It's just a bit later on. It's not like I've exercised. I didn't like it, but yes, I feel good, man. It's psychologically I do. I'm proud of myself. I'm like, yeah, man, well done. Like, you didn't want to go and you did. So your brain, you're getting better at doing things you don't want to do. Amazing. But the actual sort of rush and release of those feel good hormones, for me, I feel the benefit physically after.
Before we start this episode, I just want to say there's a video of this bit. Hello, video of this bit. My phone. The reason we didn't record last week, the reason there was no episode on Monday, is because my phone didn't record it. It didn't. We started filming it, and it decided, nah, I'm giving up on this. It has also decided to do that halfway through today's recording, but I caught it. So there is a video for half the episode, which is the second half. There is not a video for the first half. So if you're watching this on YouTube, there's just going to be a black screen with some slides, which you'll scroll through. Sorry, it's not visually interesting. We're going to make sure that we have a full video of it every week going forward. But problem is I'm trying to do the camera and talk. I can't do both at the same time, and the camera is over there. But yes, so sorry, there's no video for the first half, but there is a video for the second half. So keep watching. Or if you just want to listen to the episode, because obviously the full podcast episode is released on all platforms, so Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts, that's unaffected, obviously, because it's just an audio recording. So sorry about that. Just at a warning in advance, we'll dive straight into the topic this week, which is exercise.
All right. See you on the flip.
See you on the flip, man. Let's get to today's topic. Today, we're talking about exercise and why exercise is so good for your brain. Okay, before we get into that bit, I think it's very obvious, but I think we should break it down anyway. Why is exercise so good for our bodies? I think it's pretty obvious why exercise is good for our bodies, Andy. What do you reckon?
Physical health. They address our social health and well-being, physical health and well-being, and our mental health and well-being. Okay, so the physical side of things is obvious. Heart health, brain health, all those wonderful things. They really do support, exercise does support with those things. In terms of our mental well-being, we'll go into much more detail about why it's beneficial for it. But, some of the feel-good hormones that get released during exercise, they literally make us feel good. We'll go into a bit of that. And also social health, okay, so things like taking part in group sports. Obviously really beneficial for your social relationships and the sort of way that you operate in social settings. It is great and a wonderful thing. So exercise is just such a pillar of our health in general. It's something that obviously people understand physically why it's important, but maybe there's a bit of lack of discussion about why it's socially and mentally.
Exactly. I think exercise is often talked about in a very individualized way. It's also talked about in solo runs, solo gym sessions, which, are good for you. But I think there's a whole element of it that's really important is the social aspect of it. And, maybe joining a running club, doing that stuff together. But also the elitism of some kind of sports and exercises, like, some people, not here, obviously, talk about some exercise is better for you than other exercise, some exercise is superior, some exercise doesn't count as exercise. And that's all nonsense, basically. Like, you moving your body, as we're going to talk about, is profoundly important and powerful for your brain. Helps you literally learn more things and generates a really powerful hormone we're going to talk about a lot today. But that is not only if you run a marathon does that effect happen. It's not only if you've hiked up Mount Everest. If you go for a 10-minute walk around the park or around the council estate or whatever, you are getting these benefits. And I think that's really, really important to put that up front is, as two fairly sporty people, it's not a I'm not going to gatekeep the super amazing effects of this stuff. It's like if you can run a marathon, fantastic. That's obviously good for you. If you can not run a marathon, you can only run 2K. That's still really good for you. And in fact, they're like, you need to, when talking about exercise, it's often talked about in a very competitive, very me versus you way of describing things, especially in sport. It's like, who's better? But, for us, lay people who are not professional athletes, that doesn't matter. It's about improving ourselves, making ourselves fitter, making ourselves feel better mentally. And however you do that is really, really profound and really, really powerful.
Spot on. It goes back to those social comparison circuits that we have. We are constantly looking to compare ourselves with others in every walk of life. And as you rightly said, exercise is just no different. No different. We need to stop being so concerned with what others are doing and just be a bit more tunnel vision and just judge yourself against yourself.
Exactly.
And I think that's how a really good way to self-reflect and show your own progress. And on a personal note, I haven't been called a sporty person in about 10 years.
Have you
so
not?
thank you for that. That
You
was
are a
thoroughly
sporty
enjoyable.
person.
Do you reckon?
Yeah.
That's very kind, man.
I think you're a
I'm not
sporty
sure
person.
I am.
I think you
anymore.
are.
But I used to be, man. But
I think, but this is a perfect example of it. I think your definition of a sporty person is how sporty you were to how sporty you are now. You're like, well, I can't be, but you still are.
Oh, yes.
Compared to an average person.
Even I need help, mate.
Exactly.
So I think, just to have the comparison with yourself is not in a way of like, often when we look and reflect on ourselves, and if we haven't made the progress we anticipated or expected, that can be a cause of upset and like annoyance. And that's not really what it's there for.
Sure.
It's just the sort of ball mark to see if you are making progress. And if you're not, why are you not? And then what are the things, small tweaks you can make to progress in a way that you want to?
Exactly right.
But that doesn't have to be, I want to train to become a bodybuilder. I need to do a marathon, like you said.
Yeah.
Just do the little wins every single day.
Exactly.
Man.
And
it is a tiresome analogy that I use, man. Not even sure it's an analogy, but we'll go with that word anyway. But it's if you can improve like 0.001% every single day, you are improving every single day.
Yeah, exactly.
It doesn't have to be massive amounts of progress.
Yeah.
Just do the right things every day, and you just put yourself in a great position to live inside a happy, healthy brain. And exercise definitely falls into that category.
100%. And it's also like, as we always say in this stuff, like it's very easy for us to say, don't care what other people think, just do sports, just do your exercise. It's more complicated. I compare myself to other people when I do sports. That is a normal human instinct, but it's about battling through that. And and the more you do something, like we're going to talk about this a lot today, and we'll just get into it in a second, that if you exercise, you just will feel better, even if it's a grotty day and you feel exhausted afterwards. Like your brain will release hormones, your body releases hormones which make you feel better, more achieved, and stuff like that. So it's just a good idea. Exercise is almost always a good idea, basically, unless you're injured. And even if you're injured, light movement, sort it out. There's other things you can do, and it's not, I'm not going to be elitist about it. Basically, it's not like only this sport counts. Only this sport is the way that you feel good. Like it's whatever works for you. If that's running, if that's dancing, if that's literally going for a walk, whatever it is, whatever movement works for you. Movement is great. And fantastic segue from me there, because let's talk about movement for a second, okay? Because there is a hormone released in your brain. It's called BDNF, right? Brain derived neurotrophic factor. I'm only going to say BDNF from now on because I'm going to stumble over if I try and keep saying BDNF. I was going to fall over myself with that. But brain derived neurotrophic factor, we're going to talk about that a lot today and what it does. But very, very basically, your brain releases it when you move, okay? What it does is it allows our brain to we talked in a previous episode about neuroplasticity, this idea that your brain changes depending on what you practice with it. And that's his conscious and unconscious behaviors. There's an episode on it. Go check that out for more in depth. But very basically, if you're practicing something consciously or unconsciously, your brain is getting better at that. If that's literally trying to practice a sport, trying to practice maths, or if that's maybe not managing your worry system, for example, your brain is getting better at that because you're not challenging it, and that's how your brain works. That's why you get good at things that you like doing and get good at things you don't like doing if you keep practicing them. This is neuroplasticity. But obviously it's at a biological molecular level, there's a lot more going on than just it just happens, new neurons exist. Neurogenesis is the process by which new neurons are created and connected together. A hormone that profoundly affects that process is BDNF. And when you exercise, BDNF is released. And very, very basically what BDNF does is at the top of our neurons, there are little spiky bits. They are called dendrites. And there's a little synapses, the little gaps between. When BDNF allows our neurons to be more resilient to stress, allows them to create more connections and more densely populated connections. That's the simplest way of describing it. And how it does this is very basically, if you think about all the spikes, if I've got 5 spikes on a neuron, there are more spikes on a neuron, dendrites than that, more dendrites than that on a neuron, but go with 5 because it makes it easier. When we release BDNF, it kind of creates more of these spikes, which creates more possibilities for connection with other neurons, okay? And that just means more information can pass over between neurons, which means you're going to learn something, you can do something better, it speeds up the connections, all that stuff. But also it protects it from damage, which can be caused by stress, other things that happen in our brain that can damage neurons, by basically the fact if you started with 5 spikes and then you grow 2 more through BDNF helping to, I can't remember the name of the processes, but it kind of rips 2 more out to create more connections, but then you lose 1 of those new 7, you've still got 6, which has increased the amount of, even if you lose those 2 new ones, you've still got 5. So you haven't lost any connectivity there. You haven't lost any ability of that. So it also safeguards your neurons from toxic fatigue and stress and stuff like that. And stress is dangerous for our memory systems and our learning systems and stuff like that. So, very, very basically, exercise is really, really good for learning, for neurogenesis, for helping that process of neuroplasticity in a way that I think is potentially slightly counterintuitive, because when I think of exercise, I think of it as quite distinct from learning. I don't think of them as the same process, because, for example, in school, the kind of paragon of what learning probably looks like for most people is you have learning and then you have movement, you have your math lesson and then you have break time. So why is there this link between the two things?
That was probably the best 2-3 minutes of neuroscience this podcast has ever seen. I'll be real, man. That was absolutely sensational.
Hopefully. We'll see if it gets past the censors.
Yeah.
Wrong.
Man, that's I can't even tell you, man. That's just for me.
That makes sense.
The learning is crazy, man. Like my brain's going nuts right now. Like,
is it neurogenesis?
What an incredible thing that is. Like, what amazing. The hedger, right? What are they called?
What?
the spikes.
Dendrites.
Dendrites.
Yeah.
They sound awesome. Man.
They do. They're cool, man. They're cool.
And then the synapses. Please explain to me.
Synapses.
And the synapses. Explain to me and the listener what the synapses.
Okay, so
because I understand and appreciate that your synapses sort of will get blocked and sort of a goopy glue will sort of occur.
That's exactly right.
Day,
yeah, goopy glue.
And that's why you need the cerebral spinal fluid.
Yes, yeah, exactly right.
Clean your brain at night.
Whoa, look at that, bringing sleep into it. Whoa, man, fantastic stuff. No, exactly right. So the synapses are the little gaps between, because neurons never actually touch, right? There's always a tiny gap between the two of them. And again, to massively simplify it, because there's a lot more than this, but let's say like the synapse is the small gap between it. Stuff can get in the way of that synapse. And I can't remember what the actual chemical's called, but when you're tired, a thing kind of can sit on top of the neurotransmitter of the synapse, which basically affects the way that the connections are passed through and can stop those connections, which is why when you're tired, you are, your memory, you have less memory, you have less cognitive function, because your brain is basically kind of gummed up and the communication channels that are opened up are not as fluid. So sleeping we'll talk about sleeping a lot in a future episode, but your brain cleans itself. And one of the things it does, the reason I need such a long time of sleep, is it cleans out these synapses and makes sure this fluid, it cleans it out so that those, synapses are not blocked up by something, so that those chemicals and connections can keep flowing easier. Which is why when you're tired at the end of the day, your brain is literally kind of starting to get gummed up, because every day as you think, little kind of toxic byproducts are secreted as you think, which then sit on top of our neurotransmitters, which then block them from communicating as easily. Which is why at the end of the day, you're probably more tired, and obviously you're more tired, but like you're thinking less clearly and all that stuff is because your brain is like a bit messy and a bit dirty and a bit covered in things.
Exactly. Foggy and a bit just like you're not able to think as clearly as you were maybe first thing. So I just think, man, that's impressive stuff, and I think just to understand that and start thinking about that is powerful. And I always say that it's like a little soundboard, powerful, but it's like
that'd be good, wouldn't it?
In terms of the learning process and how the idea of your BDNF is impacted directly to your learning. I just think we have this thing at Actual Potential, and we work with hundreds of students, and we talk about these things called study reps. Okay, I won't go into too much detail, but they're basically neuroscience friendly ways to revise, aren't they? They're 25 minutes with a 10-minute break. Okay, that 10-minute break is so crucial. And as Adam said, if in that 10-minute break you go for a walk, you go for a little jog, you try and burn off some energy, the BDNF gets released, and your ability to grow those dendrites. Come on, your ability to grow them dendrites stronger. You're more able to do it. So that learning process is being improved just purely because you're doing some exercise.
Exactly.
Come on,
Amazing.
man.
And you're refiring those neurons, exactly right. So I think it's really important to talk about here. Like as I said, I think this is quite counterintuitive. Like I always thought that, and you know, we know, for example, when you're in a fight, flight, freeze response, your sympathetic nervous system, the blood drains away from your brain to your muscles to help you fight or run away from something. You know, so it's a bit confusing to understand that. So exercise and movement are explicitly linked together, and the reason why is if you think about it like this, and with this is a kind of, I think, a universal rule of understanding why the brain works like it does, right? You've got to remember we have a caveman's brain in a 21st century body. The way our brain evolved, this explains the worry system, this explains so many aspects of it. Cavemen needed to move constantly. Survival was dependent on movement. If that's, you know, movement to go and collect berries, if that's movement to find a new cave to stay in or find shelter from a storm, this is movement. You know, tracking an animal down, for example, this is all movement. So and the ability for the brain to learn and develop its understanding of the world, update its models, as we always talk about, whilst moving, was therefore paramount for survival. So if we're tracking an animal, if we're learning as we're going and taking more information in, guessing, thinking about things in a more active way, our ability, our capacity to understand the world is greater when we're running or moving around thinking about things, then we're going to survive more. We're going to have more ability. For example, like if you have a caveman who's unable to learn, for example, when moving around, then they're probably not going to be able to navigate their way back to the cave, and they get lost and they die in the forest, you know? So it's like our ability to think whilst moving is a paramount feature of human survival. So it's why movement and exercise is such a powerful kind of like brain hack for neurogenesis, for learning things. Like if you are struggling with something, as Andy said, a bit of learning, a bit of exercise is a really, really profound way of sticking it in. Far more powerful than just sitting in front of a laptop cramming it for 6 hours. You're going to learn more if you did, you know, maybe 4 hours of the work and then a bunch of exercise in between than you would have if you just crammed it for 6 hours, because movement generates this hormone, which allows us, well, it's one of the things that generates this hormone. It's generated by other things, which we'll talk about in future as well. But it's a really, really profound way of helping our brains to learn and develop, as well as all the other effects that exercise obviously has on us, and the clarity that we feel after exercise. You know, it's a good way of battling stress and all those negative hormones as well. So
for sure, man. I think it's important now that we sort of start discussing the sorts of, just sort of like, yeah, there are so many barriers to exercise. You know, a lot of what my degree and my master's was about is those barriers and how we can address them, how we can infiltrate the communities that are less physically active for whatever reason. So like if you're listening and you're like, well, I can't because I'm too busy at work, or I can't because, you know, I've got a really bad knee, or I can't, like, you owe it to yourself to try and make workarounds. And sometimes we appreciate that is a bit of a, you know, that's the dream, that's the reality. And sometimes it's difficult to live in a reality where exercise is a challenge. But I think this premonition that exercise for everyone is either enjoyable or not during, but then everyone feels good directly after. I think that is obviously true, and BDNF and dopamine, endorphin, serotonin, all these wonderful hormones do get released when we exercise. I think there can be a bit of a delay. I think in my experiences when I exercise, I used to play footy all the time, but now I stopped, and, you know, I go to the gym every now and then, and that's pretty much the extent of what I do now. But I hate it. I really don't like it. Really dislike it. Really find it difficult, challenging. When I'm tired, it's probably the last thing I want to do. Drag myself there because I know the importance of it. Even directly after, I might not get that rush of feel like, that was worth it. it will be for me an hour later, an hour and a half later, when I'm trying to sleep and I'm more tired. That's when I feel the benefit.
Sure.
So it does happen for me. It's just a bit later on. It's not like I've exercised. I didn't like it, but yes, I feel good, man. It's psychologically I do. I'm proud of myself. I'm like, yeah, man, well done. Like you didn't want to go and you did. So your brain, you're getting better at doing things you don't want to do. Amazing. But the actual sort of rush and release of those feel good hormones, for me, I feel the benefit physically after.
Yeah. That's a good point. I think that's a great point, because it's like the idea also that, yeah, I think when people talk about exercise quite a lot, like, I'm definitely guilty of it. We talk about it in a very like, oh, it's so fun, it's great, man. You just feel fantastic the whole time. Like, depending on the exercise you're doing, it probably feels terrible when you're doing it.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like a fun thing to be doing. You'd rather doing anything else. Like, I run a lot. I have run 3 marathons again. Just, I'll pause for applause.
Yeah, man. Let's get the medals out.
Thanks very much. Actually, I will. Don't
Yeah,
say
yeah.
I will. But every time I go for a run until about 5K, and I'm like, I hate this. Why am I doing this? And every marathon I've ever done, I've always promised myself, this is the last time I'm ever doing this. This sucks, man. I hate this. And I think it's really important to point that out. Like, exercise it's really good for you. It's good for you. All the stuff we've been talking about all episode. But also, it's okay if you hate it, if you don't enjoy it. We talked about this in the previous episode. Like, you don't have to enjoy exercise, but I guarantee you will feel better after you've done it than you did before.
At some point, for
exactly.
sure, 100%.
Maybe not immediately. Maybe if we're tired, but like building that consistency, that routine, that habit. Your brain doesn't like change. Your brain doesn't like doing different things. It doesn't like, basically your brain's
challenge.
a bit.
It doesn't like challenge.
It's a bit lazy. It doesn't want to work hard on things it doesn't already know how to do, right? So challenging it is a really healthy way of building up your skills of resilience, stuff like that. But also just to, the first month of a fitness routine is going to be terrible. But after that, you probably will start to enjoy it, because you're kind of going, well, I'm doing it anyway now. I might as well find some things to enjoy in it, and not every run, for example, will be fun, but some of them will be, My mum, shout out mum, I know she's listening, is someone who, a couple of years ago, she told us she would be running park run every Saturday, running twice a week, would be like, no, I don't believe that at all. And she hated running for such a long time. And, recently she started saying, you know what? I enjoyed that run. Yeah. That's amazing. That's not an experience she had, but she built the habit, did it consistently all the time. And now she's, rapid, running 10Ks on, on the beach with us. So
I think you're right. It's the habit, it's the routine. It's you might hate this for a couple of genuinely, you might hate this for a couple of years. Yeah. You build up that habit, it becomes just what you do every single day. It's just what I do. It's what I do. It's what I do. It's who I am. It's who I've become. It's a part of your identity and how you sort of see yourself. And the perceptions you might have of yourself hopefully would improve when you are doing something and putting yourself in an uncomfortable position over and over again for the benefit of your future self.
Exactly right.
And that's just, I think that's how we need to live our lives, isn't it? We have to live our lives in a way that, like, what I do today can benefit me tomorrow. And that times 10 when you exercise. Like, again, I've said this already on this podcast, but Paul Whitehouse and Bob Mortimer, go fishing. Yeah, love it. Unbelievable show.
You do, genuinely. Like, if I talk about, like, running and Bastille all the time, he talks about Paul Mortimer and Bob Whitehouse, is it?
Bob Mortimer and Paul Whitehouse.
That's it.
There we go. But yeah, man, but like,
brain.
I'm so unbelievably obsessed with them, man. But it's just like, that they had triple heart bypass and Paul Whitehouse does some steps
on the show.
No, yeah, that
mid-fish.
would be some show mid-fish. Yeah, that would be something.
Whoa.
Yeah. But they I just bring it back to them just because, bear with me, I'm going to come around the land and stick the landing with this one.
Okay, let's have a look.
It'll take some time. But they so obviously they've had real heart issues, and that's based on their lifestyle, inactive and unhealthy diets. Bob Mortimer famously used to put like 13 sugars in his tea, like just really unhealthy lifestyles, smoking, drinking too much, all these things. And then they got to a point in their early 60s, late 50s, where both of them were days away from heart failure and death, really. Whoa. So they saw that really close to it. And if they didn't have those, operations, life-changing operations, they would have died. So whenever they talk about perspective, whenever they talk about what they wish they had done and maybe a bit remorseful over their habits, I just think we owe it to listen to these people that have had that lived experience of challenge and difficulties. So, like, there are people that have this experience, like, there are things you can do to prevent it, to actually prevent that happening to you. Yeah. And why we are often so short-sighted. so short-sighted, and we can't help it. We live one day to the next, and it's almost like we struggle to make the connection between what we do today could negatively affect us in 30 years.
Yeah.
If I drink too much in my next 10 years, that could negatively affect me, maybe not straight away, directly, but in my 50s, I could have real issues. If I eat unhealthily for the next 10 years, the same thing. So although you feel invincible, don't you? When you're in the 20s, 30s, teenage years, you feel invincible.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's only when you listen to maybe older generations, or you listen to people like my mother who's had some real challenging health issues, and you're just like, oh, okay. What we need to do today, we have to be long-sighted. We have to look 20, 30 years down the line.
Yeah.
We want to be healthy in our 50s, in our 60s.
Yeah.
And a massive way of doing that is being cruel to yourself by putting yourself in those uncomfortable positions, eating the things you might think are absolute grass, and making sure that you do the right things. Because then when you are 50 and 60, hopefully, you can't always control it, and some of it's out of our control. Hopefully, you give yourself, your heart, your brain, every part of your body the best chance to be happy and healthy.
Yeah.
So I think you owe it to your future self. But that's a really difficult connection for people to make, and myself included.
Yeah.
I'll eat and indulge too much in things I shouldn't. I'll drink too much when I shouldn't. And that's something I battle with. And I'm like, come on, like, this could negatively affect you. So try and work ways around it. So in terms of exercise, my word, it is such a preventative measure for loads of difficult health issues that you might have later in life. Such a preventative measure. I'm convinced my granddad, God love him, man. He's 85.
Whoa.
Still plays golf. And I'm convinced is one of the reasons he seems like a young 85. He's active. The geezer's active. He's still going and doing bits and bobs, man. He's still keeping his brain active. He's keeping his body fit and healthy.
You keep using it.
Do you know what I mean?
It's use it or lose it.
Too right. Use it or lose it. Yeah, exactly right.
If you don't use your body and brain, you're going to lose your body and brain.
Yeah, man, exactly. So I just think that's an interesting sort of topic to walk around, really, because I just think people might define themselves as empaths, and they can look at other people's lives and feel their struggles and difficulties and challenges without necessarily looking and reflecting and changing their own habits. It's clear as day to me that if I'm doing the wrong things, which I sometimes do, then I need to owe it to my future self to overcome them, which is hard.
Exactly. I think exercise is one of those things in, like, to round it up basically. Exercise is really good for your physical fitness for reasons that you don't need to listen to us well on about. You know that. I think, dear listener, you know that. You know why exercise is good for you. You've heard that. You hopefully have felt that personally in your life. But also it's really, really profound for your brain. And that's not even just in a stress management way. It literally safeguards, protects, allows your brains to learn and create more connections, which is just fantastic. Obviously, the more connections we have for something, the better we are at it, the more we've learned about it, and it helps safeguard our brain from toxic stress, which I think is, important to talk about, because the world is very stressful. Life is very stressful. Exercise, one of the reasons that we feel better after exercise is because we have we've kept that stress at bay, not only because we've kind of given it an outlet, we've exercised that kind of away from the energy of the stress, but also we've literally safeguarded, creating new connections in our brains to help always, if there's a stressful situation, sometimes our brain can solve the problem by creating those new connections whilst doing the exercise, so I think it's really, really vital to talk about that. And exactly as you were saying, you won't like exercise necessarily even straight away or ever, but it's so incredibly good for you that it's just one of those things that we need to do. And that doesn't mean that you have to force yourself to do marathons or 5Ks or anything like that. But movement every day is so, so vital for your general well-being and health and your brain health as well in every single aspect of your life. No matter what age you are, get moving, get active every single day. And it's so, so important. So, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Yes, thanks very much for listening to the episode. Sorry there's only half the episode was on video. My phone. We're having problems, me and you. Missed the phone. But yes, thank you.
Tech guy, I reckon. We need
Exactly.
to hire him.
Oh, can we actually get a camera guy? But then he'd actually zoom in and do shots and stuff.
Right,
That'd be cool.
We're getting there. We're growing.
Yeah.
We're growing.
If you like the show, share the show so we can get a cameraman, so I don't have to do the camera banding anymore from over here.
Sure.
Because I have a little thing on my watch. If you ever see me looking at my watch, it's because I can see the camera from there.
Because he's
check
bored
it,
man. He's just like,
shut
up.
Honestly, I agreed to do a podcast with you after seeing you every day in the car.
We've been so busy last.
I'm joking.
No, but we have. We've seen each other I've seen Adam more than I've seen my
It's
partner, which most people do. In
What are you trying to say? I'm not.
and I'm just sick of him, to be honest with you.
Oh.
Well, there you go.
That is true. That is true. That's verifiably accurate. Okay, well, thanks for that. Anyway, right. Thank you very much for listening. We will see you next week for our, I'm going to call it our Christmas extravaganza, not to overhype it too much. Christmas extravaganza next week, and hopefully the whole thing's on video. But yeah, we'll see you then.
Cheers,
Take care, guys.